Thank you for joining to learn about SAP IT Operations Analytics. A quick overview for those of you who aren't aware of the product, and a quick review of what is new in the latest releases we've had come out. Back just before Sapphire, we had Service Pack 3 release, and we'll have Service Pack 4 coming out hopefully the end of August, early September. So SAP IT Operations Analytics. It's a product SAP has built. It is analytics for IT. So as much as we always go in and we talk about working with IT and how it can better service and provide analytics for business users, we really don't go in and talk to IT about what IT needs in terms of analytics for IT to manage its own business. And that's what this product is aimed at. And that's what this overview will cover very briefly. Standard disclaimer. The presentation outlines the general product direction. There is no obligation to pursue any course of business. Things may change from what is presented, especially given the fact that we'll be talking about a robot at the end of this presentation. So what are we going to cover today? What is SAP IT Operations Analytics and what value does it bring IT? What is new and how it augments the IT landscape, especially with some of the new features we've brought out. A demo of the actual product so you know that it's not vaporware, and I will discuss very quickly the product roadmap, including integration with other SAP solutions, because that is something that as we engage with customers and partners is something they ask about. So quick overview of SAP IT Operations Analytics. IT is changing dramatically. The world is not what it was 20 years ago. IT has become central to the way business operates and runs, and it is being overwhelmed. The amount of data that it has to deal with, not just in terms of what it has to serve out, but also what it needs to consume in order to manage itself, is growing rapidly. The landscapes are getting far more complex. Mergers and acquisitions bring in multiple types. There are a number of protocols being used. There is a very limited standard in terms of some of the devices talking back and sharing information. And there is not just a growing complexity of landscape. Virtualization is also coming into this. So a server is no longer just a box. I mean, it's a virtualized server. But what does that mean in terms of the services and the underlying hardware and what it's sitting? All of these things do have existing monitoring tools. The problem is you can't have a plethora of tools. You really need a single unified view so that you can efficiently act. Those tools are still very useful and are useful at a lower level. But at a higher level, you need something that brings everything together. You need some way of getting insight and be able to take that insight and drive action. And one of the ways that we actually bring that insight, in addition to providing that holistic view and integrating everything into one place, is the fact we also can bring business data, master data, into this world. So now when IT is looking at something, it's not just looking at IT data. It's looking at IT data combined with that master or business data. So you have an idea of SLAs. You have an idea of the business impact of a particular IT event. So it's not just IT working in isolation. It's IT in the context of the business it's supporting. And I talked about the world changing. You can't have a digital business, and everyone is talking about digital transformation right now, without IT. IT has shifted from supporting a business, which was always critical, to being the core of many businesses. Businesses cannot exist or run without IT. No longer can you send a message out to the users as you could 25 years ago and say the system is down, we will send you an email when it is up. If that system is down, the company is now bleeding money. When you take a look at some of the most successful businesses that have started to change the way we interact in this world, whether it's Facebook, which has popular media content and doesn't actually own or create any media, to Lyft and Uber and others, where you're looking at taxi companies that really don't have an infrastructure of cars, to Airbnb and Ariba, Alibaba, which is people that don't have brick and mortar. I mean, Airbnb connects people to rentals. They don't actually own real estate. Alibaba connects retailers. It doesn't hold an inventory. So the way the world is interacting is changing, and that interaction relies more and more on IT to ensure that connection and that interaction. And if it's down, as I said, the business is bleeding money. The mean cost of an unplanned outage is almost $9,000 a minute, according to a PNOM study. Data centers are only delivering 5 to 10% of the maximum computing output, according to Forbes, and a lot of the servers are comatose. That either comes through history, i.e. a server has been there forever and nobody knows exactly what it does anymore, or a merger and acquisition where you end up with excess capacity. And the majority of companies surveyed actually have more than 10 different monitoring tools that they're using in their enterprise, which is fine when it gets down to the actual nitty-gritty level. But at a higher level, I need a combined insight from those 10 different monitoring tools. I can't have 10 disparate tools where the teams don't talk to each other. So what you really need is a unified view of IT across all of the inputs you can get, and combine that with master data so you have an idea of the business impact of an IT environment. And you actually will find that you are far more efficient. An Aberdeen study has found that people with a holistic view of IT operations are 3 times more likely to reduce the time to fix the issues. They're 2.2 times more likely to have high availability for IT systems and services. And they're 2.6 times more likely to have very low error rates for IT services. So what you need is a unified view across all the tools that combines the information you get with business data. So have an idea of who owns a server or is using a particular piece of IT infrastructure, whether it's related to revenue, and if so, how much revenue that relationship is. And that's where the value of SAP IT Operations Analytics comes in. It is built on the HANA platform, so it leverages HANA's real-time capabilities. One of the issues that you can see in market is latency. Information has to come in, information has to be aggregated and indexed, and then information is available for you to take action on or view and build actions on. That latency can be an issue. HANA allows us to stream data in, massive amounts of data, and act on it in real time. SAP ITOA has a refresh rate that can go down to 5 seconds. So the information you're dealing with is the information that is actual at the time. It's not historic. It's coming in immediately, and it gives you the ability to act on events in the moment, not events that have happened and you're reacting to them. Being based on HANA, we also have some built-in predictive capabilities. We're able to leverage the predictive analytics libraries that exist on the HANA platform, and that again gives us some ability to bring value to IT in terms of getting away from a reactive and moving to more proactive mode. So I'm able to combine all of the various pieces that I need to manage a data center, from the various teams, as the server, network, backup storage teams, through the devices, through virtualization, through the services and applications that are running. All of that in one holistic real-time view with predictive capabilities. And that really changes the way that IT can operate and really positions it well to deal with this new digital transformation, a world where IT is core, and anything that creates an incident or an outage costs the company massive amounts of money. One of the problems with a disparate view, or as I mentioned, many companies having 10 tools, is how do I know where the issue is? I have an internal service, or I have a commerce site, or I have a cloud business. And is the incident at the application layer? Is the incident caused by something in the operating system? Is it something down at the infrastructure level, i.e. the network or some other core? I need to have an idea of where this is, because anywhere in this vertical column that there's an issue, the end service at the top is interrupted. So I have to be able to have a holistic view to be able to determine very quickly where the issue is so it can be addressed very quickly. Historically, what has happened is teams in silos have looked at their own tools and worked in parallel until such time as an incident is resolved. And basically, that wastes time and resources. So if, for instance, a switch goes down, the compute team might start working on it because a user has said that their application is not working. Of course it's not. They cannot connect to the server. The storage team might be working on it because somebody says they can't get at something, and the backup team likewise. And the network team is also working on this issue. It takes a while before the compute team realizes, and the storage team realizes, and the backup team realizes that it's actually the networks team's problem, and let the network team take care of it. During that period of time, multiple tickets have been opened, which have to be cleaned up after the incident's resolved, and a number of people have wasted time and resources troubleshooting something that is not their problem. If I was able to combine the compute, network, storage, backup, all the information that use their own individual tools, do their own daily tasks, and troubleshoot issues at a level, into a holistic view where I can get that expert access. I can take a look at the events, the logs, the metrics. I can combine it with CMDB information and other master data such as contract data, SLAs. All of a sudden, I have a centralized response unit that says there's an issue. The issue is with network. Assign it directly, and nobody's wasting time, effort, or cycles dealing with something that is not their problem. I become far more efficient. I become far more effective. And this upper-level view not only allows me to coordinate and orchestrate far better, eliminating inefficiencies, it gives me a way to provide information at a higher level to other people. We take a look about executive access in the top right-hand corner. And I'm going to talk about this in one of the use cases that we're going to come to a little bit later on. When C-level people want information and they say, tell me about the health of our network, traditionally you're scrambling and talking to various teams and grabbing information from various tools and cobbling it all together into a report that you push up. We can actually create a dashboard that gathers the information that is relevant to an executive user and present that solely as a dashboard. No extra work, no effort on the teams down below to gather and combine this information. It's all gathered automatically, filtered automatically, and presented automatically in a way that that C-level user has access to. How many incidents per customer? How many incidents per vendor? How many incidents per region? So things that they're interested in that gives them information and the ability to act without a lot of work being done by IT to combine that information. If you're an MSP, how do you convey information to your end users or your customers in terms of the health of their network? So this really helps you manage this and deal with it in one coordinated, very effective, efficient way. I mentioned the fact that we have some predictive capabilities, and Jim will demonstrate that a little bit later on when we get into it. But we use the predictive algorithm library in HANA, and we're able to do time series forecasting using that. That time series forecasting will help you with maintenance through monitoring. It makes you more efficient. It helps with costs above your current predictive maintenance plans, because those predictive maintenance plans are based on a time cycle. They're not necessarily based on need, because you're not perceiving or viewing the need. Take a look at alerts that tell me that something is going to break. And I can then take preventative steps to avoid time series forecasting, and it's useful for capacity planning as well, because obviously time series forecast allow me to see trends and growth, and I can see where I need more resources to support certain applications. I know where I have excess capacity that I can get rid of it. But it also helps reduce noise, and it changes the way I alert. Because traditionally you set an alert on a level. Let me know when the CPU usage is above 80%. The problem with that is, Monday morning, the domain controllers at 9 o'clock are probably going to surge above 80%. I expect them to, because everybody's coming in at the same time, everybody's logging on at the same time. I've got a mass event. I get the alert, I look at my BlackBerry or my iPhone, and I put it back away, because I got an alert that I know I'm expecting. How about I alert you when things are out of the norm, not on a static level, i.e., I base my alerts on events as they happen, and if my predictive algorithm tells me, my time series forecasting tells me, that I expect the server to surge to around 90% at this point in time, I will not alert you, because I expect the surge. But if it's Sunday morning and the server's at 90%, I will send you an alert, because this is out of the norm. Likewise, nobody sets a low water mark on a server. Everybody talks about setting a high water mark. Tell me when the processor is above 80%. Well, what if the processor is at 10%? This idle time is good. And I'm not talking about capacity planning, i.e. identifying idle servers. I'm talking about a server where I expect a 70% load, and I'm seeing a 10% load. Send me an alert, because I'm now, again, out of the predicted or anticipated range. What has happened in the infrastructure, in the network, that the server is now at 10%? Has something stopped on the server in terms of OS? Is there a service that's gone corrupt? Is there a network issue where a switch is down and people can't get to the server, therefore the server is not performing at load? So it changes the way that I get alerted. And we can also learn what variables correlate to performance, and we can build operational knowledge to help the staff and reduce issues. So let's take a look at some use cases, how people are actually utilizing this and how it's valuable. We have a public water agency that is using it within their BI team in IT to predict and do a holistic monitoring of their data center and network. And the reason that they chose SAP ITOA, because of the way we gather data, because of the way we provide that holistic view, we were the only vendor that could provide a holistic end-to-end view of their whole water value chain. And I talked about higher level reports being generated, not just the dashboards that are used for day-to-day operations. In this case, there is a BI dashboard that the minister actually uses to present to Parliament. So it is very useful in terms of not only providing a holistic view, but also providing reports at various levels that are useful. A large international oil company, again, is using it with the BI team within IT. They have numerous BI tools, SAP and non-SAP, but they had no insight to align the BI logs with the underlying network or hardware. And the team had no way of tying the end user SLAs that it had and looking at how they were tracking and meeting those SLAs. So they needed some business value brought in, and we talked about merging master data. But they also needed to be able to take a look and see what the issue was. They basically outsource their infrastructure. They own application up. And what was happening was the application team was wasting time and effort dealing with issues that were coming in that weren't application related. Now, because they have gotten the host system to actually install the SAP ITOA, they have a vision into their infrastructure. And the first thing they do when they get an application issue is it the application or is it the infrastructure? Do I waste time working on it, or do I assume that or escalate to my hosting provider to get it fixed? We have a large appliance manufacturer that's using it within its own IT department, and this is an IT-centric use case. The other ones have talked more about looking outside IT. This is looking at integration with virtual machines. So integration with SAP Landscape Manager, commonly or previously known as Landscape Virtualization Manager. So how can I actually take a look at the virtualization? What is used? How are things performing in that virtualization? How do I adjust resources? And it's an integration between SAP ITOA and Landscape Manager. And it really helps them be more effective and efficient. One of the things we're going to talk a little bit later is actually taking automated action. And when you look at a virtualized environment, you can change the pools associated with a particular quote-unquote server, whether it's storage, memory, CPU. So if I find that at a given point in the month, I know that this particular server will be busy, I can assign more memory to it. I can assign more processing power to it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's something I will do on a static basis, i.e. it's a third of the month, so I'm going to do this. I can actually do it because the predictive trends are telling me when and how to do this, and I can have it done automatically without human intervention. When CPU usage goes above 80%, add X amount of capacity. And when CPU usage drops below 70%, remove X amount of capacity, all done without human interaction or intervention. We also have GDT Advanced Solutions, who is an SAP partner, and they are a managed service provider. They provide infrastructure and data center services to others, and they are using SAP IT to do that proactive piece, the predictive piece, and to holistically manage and monitor the data center. And again, we were the only provider that could provide a single platform to manage all the hardware that they had. And again, they needed business value because they worked at SLA to understand the master data. They needed to understand the SLAs associated with particular pieces. And in the agenda, I said how and why it was developed. SAP IT Operations has been in the market for just over a year now. And we actually came out of a need that SAP had. SAP, a few years ago, realized that its world was changing in terms of IT. SAP became a cloud provider, very much a cloud provider, with the acquisition of Ariba, Hybris, Fieldglass, and others. So we switched. IT became critical to supporting end users that were customers in a world where it's very easy to have customer churn. The switching cost between cloud providers is not that large. So if people are not happy with a particular cloud solution, they will find another vendor for that solution very quickly. So we had to make sure that we were providing that always up, always on, uninterrupted performance. And we're large. SAP IT has 42 data centers in 28 countries across the globe. It's got 87,000 servers and 20,000 physical hosts that have to be monitored. It's got a virtualization rate of 70%. So that is something really that brings in some complexity that needs to be managed and monitored. And it's dealing with massive amounts of data. The impact on SAP IT has been fairly substantive when you take a look at what's happening. Whether you're anticipating poor performance and monitoring to predict cloud costs, you're reducing time to find root cause, you're improving SLAs, and you have that executive board interaction so that you're able to get that single pane of glass view that services a number of groups and a number of needs. So SAP IT Operations can bring value. It saves time and money. It is non-disruptive. We don't say rip out your old infrastructure and monitoring tools. We sit on top of that. And we are SQL-based, so you don't have to learn any particular query language to go with it. And we can help IT reduce risk by preventing outages before they occur and take proactive measures. So based on HANA, which is a proven platform that brings us that real-time capacity to deal with high amounts of streaming data, we can lever the existing monitoring tools in the network. We don't require you to learn anything new. We have a very easy-to-use GUI, and we're SQL-based. We have the predictive capability. We work with a number of leaders, including Lenovo, where we've integrated with Xclarity. And we're priced on value, not ingest. So there are substantial differences that we actually bring. At this point, I'm going to give my voice a rest. Jan, did you want to talk quickly about what is new and what's come out in the last couple of service packs?
Yeah, so thanks a lot, John. Everybody hear me okay? Yeah, good. So just quickly before we get to the demo, we'll go through some of the what's new, what's hot in ITOA. So as John mentioned, ITOA is not based on a proprietary language, and so we can leverage the skill sets of your IT department. One of the ways we're doing that is through this graphical GUI-based SQL query builder called the Analytics Builder. We'll go through and take a look at what that really means later, but basically it's a set of puzzle pieces that you can put together based on the functions you see there along the left. And what it is it guides you through your data, so you don't have to write these giant complex queries. You can actually use the drop-down menus to see and explore your data. So John, if we could just advance there. Thanks. So we're also looking at understanding the business impact. John mentioned that it's possible to not only bring in IT data into ITOA, but also to bring in master data, whether that's contract data, SLA data, CMDB data. That can all come into the one system with ITOA. Even things like security zone. So we're understanding the full impact of an outage across the entire business, not just IT. So one of the ways we're going to show you this in the demo is using the stories function of ITOA, where you can kind of drill down into a specific instance. Next up, we've got root cause analysis. So this visual feature helps you see and really gives you an understanding of that single pane of glass view across your entire IT infrastructure. And it greatly enhances the ability to find the root cause of an issue very quickly. And we have an example that we didn't walk through today, but at SAP IT, we've reduced the mean time to resolution from anywhere from 15 to 60 minutes down to just 5. And part of that is the power of this tool and being able to correlate events across different types of IT infrastructure and different groupings in a timely manner. So we'll go through a little root cause analysis situation as well going forward. Now, John mentioned automation, and I think this is actually one of the topics that we're going to cover in a webinar in this series in a couple months, I think. But really, automation is the future. We need to understand that automation improves our lives so much, like we should be giving that same benefit to the IT department. So what ITOA can do is it can actually execute scripts that resolves issues or even present issues before they occur. And that's kind of the predictive element we'll talk about as well. But sometimes all that's needed is a quick restart of a system. There's no need to call a human being in to troubleshoot and do all this sort of thing if all you're doing is, flicking the switch on or off and then on again. So we have a great video showing how ITOA can avoid common problems like running out of disk space, for instance, on the YouTube channel or on, I believe it's linked from the SAP.com/ITOA page. But all that links will be contained in the deck at the end. So speaking of predictive, John spoke to it a little bit, this idea that you are no longer operating on static pieces of information. There's no longer the plus or minus 20% doesn't work anymore. So with ITOA, out of the box, we have time series forecasting. And as you can see in this image here, we have the blue line, which is what actually is happening, and the green line, which is what's predicted. And you can also see that our outlier detection is turned on, and that's what those orange dots are along the blue line. So when these orange dots appear and are recognized by the system, you can use that to trigger different kinds of actions. And we'll get into that a little bit later in the demo. So next topic, looking at more intense and more nuanced predictive situations, things like predictive maintenance. We need to integrate with something like Predictive Analytics, another great SAP tool. So we have an awesome demo from Sapphire, and John talked a lot about it there, but I don't want to steal his thunder. There is going to be another webinar about the integration between ITOA and Predictive Analytics, so maybe we'll just leave that topic there for now. Also, we talked about the integration with data center leaders. So one of the people we're working with very closely is Lenovo, and John mentioned their Xclarity solution, which is the native monitoring tool for Lenovo hardware. So we've joined forces with Lenovo and created out-of-the-box content, things like parsing rules, pre-built dashboards, things like that, that combines the data from Lenovo Xclarity, as well as the SAP host agent. And that gives you the power to do things like be alerted of predictive failures and notifications about how much power is being used or the temperature issues that you're experiencing in the data center. Now, just like everything within ITOA, this content is totally customizable to the user's use case and can be extended, but to have this functionality out of the box is pretty powerful. So today is just going to be a really brief overview, more of a flyby really of ITOA, but as we go further into this webinar series, we'll dive deeper into some of the areas that we're going to show you today. So without any further ado, I present to you SAP IT Operations Analytics. On the left-hand side here, we can see the different mini apps that come standard with SAP ITOA, and we're going to walk through most of these today. We might not get the chance to look at the alerts or the attribute editor, but those are a little bit more operational than, and not as exciting to demo in this kind of short time that we have. Dashboards, however, are exciting. So we'll hop into one of those. So here we'll display of what our IT landscape looks like. So we can see that if any of you are familiar with SAP Lumira, it kind of has the same feel as Lumira. And we can see here that we've got heat maps, but the heat maps are cut up into various areas that we've defined that works for our organization. So here at Best Run Company, we're looking at sales, production, and human resources. We have different types of charts here, and I'll show you just in a little bit. Actually, why don't we jump into that right now? So the landscape is a visual view. John talked about the ability to build dashboards and give permissions to different people, such as executives or different groups within your IT department. So there are a wide range of permission values that are available in ITOA. But where the data is stored in ITOA is in what we call the buckets. So we see here the chart view of the chart we were looking at. As you can see again, it looks quite a bit like Lumira. But if we switch to the table view, this is where we see the actual log data streaming in real time of our interval here at 15 seconds. In order to build the chart, what we've done is applied some of these filters. And these filters are built on these different event attributes here. As you can see, we have 52 different event attributes we're capturing for this particular bucket, the alerts and monitor bucket. So in this table here, we can do things like pull down data. Oops, not that one. Let's do Nagios status and build a different column to see exactly what's going on. If we mouse over, we can see the different attributes that are being pulled out of this particular log file, and we can do things like create a filter or exclude, and also see the entire original message or what master data is being associated with this particular message. We also have a time selector where we can select which area of time we would like to look at. You can do things like slide the selector or look at preset values as well. So this is kind of the data view of ITOA, the buckets as I mentioned previously. So if we get back into the dashboard, I'm going to show you stories that we were talking about earlier. So the story here, so what we're looking at here is things like profit per instance, of instance being the IT infrastructure that is responsible for driving that business function. So 60 minutes from the last event is probably not going to give us a good idea of what we're looking for, so we'll do an entire day. So if we take an entire day and look only at the sales, because it looks like it's just we've got some business lost in the sales, which we're not anticipating here. So based on what I click through, that's going to populate these various charts. As we can see here, that server 2 with the blue guy, we're losing profit on server 2. So what we're going to do is in the per instance table, all these instances are responsible for the sales organization. If we look at server 2 only, we can see that we're actually losing money at times. We're below zero in the profit, and that looks like it's related to our chart, whereas we can see a correlation between time that the ping is critical, or suggesting that the service is not running, versus the time it's okay. So just a quick example of bringing in business data and master data, but also the stories where you can see how you can drill down into specific areas. How you build these stories is with our analytics builder. So this is the same story that we were looking at, but what it looks like in the analytics builder is this. So these are the puzzle pieces I was talking about earlier, where you have the different SQL pieces that you can just drag in, drop, and then build your complex queries right from here using, using drop-down menus, so you don't have to look at your different, you don't have to have a really deep understanding of your data, and also you don't write runaway queries that occupy a lot of time on the server. So I think we have another webinar series that deals more specifically with Analytics Builder, but that's just a quick introduction. Back in the dashboards, let's take a quick look at the alert prediction. So both John and I mentioned this, but here what we're looking at is how easy it is. It's almost like Predictive for dummies. All you need is slide this toggle. Turn on prediction, and we have different options. You can do this for any series of data that is associated with a timestamp. And for IT data, the type of data that we're looking at, that's most of the data that we in from the infrastructure layer. We can select the number of hours we'd like to predict out, which could be 1 hour for different use cases, all the way up to something that's a little bit more longer term. We can also turn the outlier detection. I mentioned earlier, this gives us the opportunity to activate alerts. So we can do things like send emails or using an SMS server to send text messages. But we can also do something more powerful and getting more into that automation area, where what we're actually going to do is trigger a script based on these alerts and take an automated action within the data center. So because we're going to get more into predictive and the integration with predictive analytics and also talk about automation in a further session, I'll leave that here for now. So we've been through almost everything. I think the last thing to show you is the root cause analysis. So I've kind of preset the scenario here. We know there was an event that happened this morning in between 3 a.m. and 3:20 a.m. I'll just quickly show you how noisy logs can be, or infrastructure data can be. They're very chatty, these devices, in the IT. So here you can see there's just a solid block of events coming in. And what we can do here is filter out just the important ones. So we're just only going to look at the ones that are really crucial to our system, as well as we know there was an error message that we got was from server 1, so we're just going to search for server 1. And we can see that we can very easily pinpoint times in space where we have these issues. So if we look at these issues, we can see that it's also related to server 6. So we're just going to also search for server 6. And of course, because it's a live demo, nothing's coming up like I want it to in the bottom here. But you can see now that we're also having errors for server 6 and server 1 as well. And that correlates. We can easily correlate in time to things that happen in different buckets, this being our operating system and application bucket, and here being our alerts and monitor bucket, so something like C Spectrum or Nagios. And we can easily correlate these events in time and see that, well, maybe if there was an event that happened earlier in time, that could actually be causing the event and a different part of the infrastructure. So, John, I want to leave
SAP IT Operations Analytics, our roadmap and our product vision, where we are and where we are going. As noted, we can acquire information from a number of places in the IT world, whether it's syslog, through a host agent. So we are agentless, but we do have an agent that can be installed on devices to get particular information if necessary. We don't just use syslog, we can use logstash that can receive information, but we're also looking at integrating, because JM talked about automation. Our planned innovation within this shorter time frame in 2017 is to actually have output to logstash for ITOA, so we can do API calls and interact. We're looking at increasing data connectors from various partners that we work with. We're looking at content packages. JM talked about those stories that he was showing. Those are all built for a particular need or a customer. And what we're trying to do is get a core of standard or most used stories. So we can actually package these content packages for various use cases, both for SAP and non-SAP applications, so they're able to be rolled a little bit more quickly. We're looking at integrating with focused run, predictive analytics, which we've achieved to a level, and we're looking at integrating the PI into our application itself. Landscape Manager, where there's a need, and obviously with Business Objects Cloud, because that is the future of this company. And a lot of those are fairly closely along. And we're looking at using dynamic tiering in a solid way to be the offload. One of the issues that you may run into is that we are HANA-based, therefore it is memory, but you're dealing with mass amounts of high-volume, low-value data, log data, sensor data. So you want to offload it, and dynamic tiering is the ideal way to keep it in a warm store in the SAP environment so that it's easily accessible, and a way of getting that historic volume built up without having it stored in memory. A little bit longer term, we're looking at acquiring ingest and ticketing systems so that there's a little bit more of a closer tie with ITOA and the ticketing systems, the same way there's a tie with master data now. Geospatial analysis is something we're looking at that we figure that would be very useful coming up, along with an expert mode for the analytics builder, so that people can actually go in and freehand SQL if they wish, as opposed to the Blockly drag and drop. And JM talked about how it looks like Lumira, and if you're familiar with Lumira. Well, the future of SAP is Fiori, so we are looking at integration with Fiori and the Fiori Launchpad so that our interface will be standard across the other. And then we're looking at going to offload beyond dynamic tiering into the SAP Vora Hadoop world. Vora being the compute that sits across the distributed data stores. So really, Avora being that connection point into that Hadoop store, but again, a place where people are looking at naturally storing large amounts of sensor and other related data that they can then mine later on if they need. We're looking at, and the integration with Lenovo was a step towards that. JM talked about Lenovo Clarity giving you power usage, temperature, etc. We're looking at a way of acquiring sensor data required by IT so that the environmental data and other data in the network beyond, there's nothing wrong with Lenovo's Clarity, but it's restricted to or aimed at Lenovo devices. We're trying to be more generic. So how can we pick up environmental information, power information across the IT infrastructure as a whole to help integrate that into the knowledge base that you have in order to take those learnings. We're looking at self-healing data centers as we drive towards that automation. We talked about without human intervention, we can even get to the point where you're doing a rollout of software or the data center itself is having issues, and it's human supervision, not human intervention. Humans are watching the machines take that action by itself. And obviously, there is a drive to the cloud. Right now, we're an on-prem solution. You can have an interface in the cloud so that you can look at the data and do analytics in the cloud, but the data is still sitting down on-prem. We are obviously looking at going to a native cloud solution in the future, eventually at some point in time. So that's an idea of kind of where we're going. And we talked about integration. I talked about there's a whole series, or the next webinar in this series, there's a whole webinar on predictive and integration with SAP Predictive Analytics. But we also work with two other pieces that I highlighted today, Solution Manager and Landscape Manager, or LLAMA. So we take a look at this. We are a natural integration and synergy, and they are complementary use cases that can be used now. So Solution Manager is something that, because it comes with maintenance and SAP uses it to help customers in dealing with issues, it's something that most SAP customers utilize and utilize well. So how can it be augmented by SAP IT Operations Analytics? Solution Manager is the hub for the all systems management activities. It focuses on application lifecycle management. It provides central monitor for SAP and non-SAP systems and applications, and some central alerting, particularly when you're looking at integration with Solution Manager, when you're looking at those management activities. We bring that real-time analytics predictive view for IT data and operations data combined with master data, so the business insights. We're focused on the data center and IT infrastructure, and it taps into and correlates the existing monitoring tools. It could also include information from Solution Manager. And it's a central place to correlate and alerts and feed into ITOA. So they really are something that's complementary, where, when you're taking a look at root cause and when you're taking a look at other issues, where is the issue and where is the best place to get the information to solve that issue? If it's infrastructure, it's SAP IT Operations Analytics. If it's an application issue, SAP ITOA can scrape ABAP logs, can give you some insight, but Solution Manager really is the ideal tool to do that, because SAP applications are normally written in a way that when there's an issue, error logs are dumped into Solution Manager. This is where I get my deep dive. So where is the tool specialized? They work hand in hand. They both complement each other very well. And the same with Landscape Manager, especially as we talk about virtualization. SAP IT is 70% virtualized. And when we take a look at, JM's going to talk about automation in an upcoming webinar, when we take a look at the self-healing data center that our long-term vision is driving towards, you need something that actually works with that virtualization. That's where SAP Landscape Management comes in. It's centralized SAP HANA Landscape Management for standardized SAP operations. It gives a view of that virtualization. It simplifies and automates advanced operations, and it again provides orchestration across that virtualized environment. And again, we provide that infrastructure view that includes that virtualization, and it really is a good complementary piece between the two, where again we can work with an integration with landscape management to actually see the virtualization and interact with that virtualized environment. So that takes me, I didn't quite leave as much time as I wanted for questions, but we're close. If you want to learn more, we do have a product webpage on SAP.com. SAP.com/ITOA will take you there. And if you go to help SAP.com/ITOA, there is a very beautiful help page. It includes blogs, includes how-to videos, as well as the product documentation. And it is in the SAP demo store. That was the instance that Jan was actually using for his demo this morning. And it is on the Cloud Appliance Library, so it's a CAL image. If you want to get this up yourself, get your own data in there and try it, it's something that you can do.